Tuning in, everybody. All right, so today we're going to go over city assessed value versus appraisal value versus market value. All right, and and certain people that's tuning in right now, it may not apply to you because it sounds like you don't have city assessed value in your area. But these are some questions that will pop up between homeowners. Depending on the situation that you're in, and I can kind of give you scenarios of where it came into play for me, where it made a difference knowing how to have these conversations, right? So let's first start off with city assessed value. What's city assessed value? City assessed value is pretty much determined by the local tax authority, right? And most states and local government, they calculate it with a certain percentage of the property's fair market value. That certain percentage is dependent on where you're at. It varies. Massachusetts, from my understanding, is the lowest one, where they have it at 10%. Versus other states, right? So that percentage as well helps determine what your property tax is going to be. All right, it's not like there's no correlation really in regards to the appraised value or market value, where it's like it's not really relevant, right? Appraisers don't normally go out and check the city assessed value and try to say, okay, this is the value that's coming in at because of the city assessed value, and buyers not really either. The question will come up on buyers' aspect sometimes, where they're like, hey, this person's asking for $800,000, but their city assessed value is $600,000, right? And that question will come up here and there. And I think it's important to understand to how to have that conversation. So at least for me in the past, when it's been brought up where a buyer is asking me, like, hey, they're asking for $800,000, but this, from what I'm seeing, the city assessment is $600,000. Is that reasonable, right? And this is when you have that conversation with them. Well, yeah, the city assessed value doesn't really have any correlation or relevancy to market value, and here's the reason why. I mean, if you look at the other homes nearby that have sold as well, and this is where the market value and the appraised value comes into play. You can kind of supply them the comps and letting them know, like, look, these other homes that have sold at $850. Their assessed values in the 600 as well. And the reason for that, again, is the city assessed value. The city hasn't seen the property. They're using a certain percentage of the market value, and that is why there's a gap, right? And that helps explain it normally to the buyers. Any questions on that so far? All right, cool. So that's one common thing that will pop up, is where a buyer will ask. And then another common thing that will pop up is when you are dealing with a distressed property, is essentially where I have a lot more conversations. Assessed value is showing city assessment is showing it's worth $250,000. Market value, what a buyer is willing to pay and what it could potentially even appraise for if it qualifies for a loan, is showing 175 max, right? And the conversation comes up where the seller's like, hey, the offer seems really low. You're offering 175, but the city's showing that my property is worth around 250,000, right? And the conversation where that needs to be had is, hey, completely understandable. Do you understand the difference between the city assessed value, appraised value, and market value? And most times they don't. And then you let them know, well, city realistically has not seen your property, the inside, right? Or sometimes even the outside, in years. So they're assessing you based off of the other sales in the area as well, and using that certain percentage from the other sales that's happened in the area that has similar criteria. And this is why you're landing at the 250. But in reality, you need a new roof, you need new windows, you need a new kitchen, you need a new bathroom. You have all these upgrades that need to be done. And that's realistically why you're in the 175 range. Does that make sense, right? And sometimes they'll click with the homeowner, sometimes they'll combat it still. But that's the most common times where it'll pop up for me on the seller side. And then in some cases as well, what you'll see, it's very rare, but there will be times here and there where somebody's being taxed higher than what their market value is, and it's not a distressed property, right? So like common scenarios that I've seen where it will happen is where, let's say you got a neighborhood where a majority of the neighborhood is 4 bedrooms, 2.5 bath homes with 2,000 plus square feet. And then you got this one home in that neighborhood that just so happens to be a 3-bedroom, 2-bathroom, and 1,200 square feet for whatever the odd reason is. And they're being assessed at a similar value than those other homes in the area. And then I've seen scenarios like that where that's sometimes where unfortunately it's not helping them out on the sale aspect of it, but also they've been taxed. So like pretty much in comparison to the 4-bedroom 2.5 for the entire years that they've been there. So that's another scenario where that will pop up as well. So that's, something to keep in mind as you run into these homes. It's really, these conversations may come up, because at that point in time, the seller will ask like, hey, my city's assessing me at $375,000 in comparison to the other homes in the neighborhood. Right. And then what they don't realize is, yes, they are, because the other homes in the area are 4-bedroom, 2-bathroom, 2,000 square foot plus. And yours is only 3-bedroom, 2-bathroom with 1,200 square feet. And it's unfortunate, but they've been taxing you too high for the entire time you've been living here. You just didn't notice it until now. Right. So like that's sometimes that's a conversation that will pop up as well. Because the seller will be wanting a similar value to what the other homes are selling, what the other homes are going for in the area, but their market value is a lot lower, because there's not as many 4-bedroom, 2-bathroom. There's not as many 3-bedroom, 2-bathroom comps with 1,200 under square feet, right? So that's, any questions on that, guys? All right, cool. And next, the appraised value. So, I mean, Caesar, were you about to say something?
No, Brody. I was just gonna say. No, I wasn't gonna say. I was gonna say something, but no. You're good, bro. You're good. You're good.
You sure?
Yeah. You're good.
All right, cool. So next thing was appraised value. I mean, almost everyone on here, pretty much they're all experienced. You guys, appraised value is the evaluation of a property's value based on a given time, right? So that's typically what we'll see it is when we're under contract, right? But then you'll also see it where if you're doing a pre-listing and you're having a hard time pricing a property and you kind of need an appraiser's opinion, right, here and there. And then you can also see it where people are doing refinances, right, things like that. So that's when an appraisal will get done. That appraisal typically gets paid for the buyer, but unless if you're doing a refi, a refi or a pre-listing, the seller will pay out of pocket. The appraised value gets determined by homes that have sold nearby with similar condition, bedroom, bathroom, square footage, style home, right? And they'll normally stay within the same subdivision unless they need to go further out to get comparable sales, right? So they might start within the subdivision, but then they'll go out 1/4 mile radius, 1/2 mile radius, sometimes a mile radius. I've seen some appraisers even go out 3-4 miles radius if there's a really hard time getting comparables. And they won't go further back in time. They usually go 6 months, but if there's a ton of sales, they might even just do 3 months. But they'll go further back in time if needed due to lack of sales. The appraised value aspect of it, these are some scenarios that's popped up for me before in the past where I had needed to get a pre-listing appraisal. Higher end homes, normally I'll recommend it if it's really hard to get some comps. But especially when you have a property that has priced themselves out of a neighborhood. So I had a seller I helped out about 1.5 years ago. He was in a 400,000 max neighborhood. And what he did was he did $300,000 worth of renovations in his home.
I'm about to list a house like that, Tein. That's coming up this week.
So he really priced himself out of the neighborhood. And what we had to do, because my game plan going into it at that point in time, he wanted 625,000. Realistically, it was like, dude, like you're lucky if you can even get 600,000, like to even go above that, right? But so the game plan was, in that scenario, I had bring me all the invoices, all the receipts. It was a legitimate $300,000 worth of renovations that he did. He just didn't know any better. So he priced himself out of the neighborhood because he did all this work into a home where essentially there's no comparables within 3-mile radius. So we essentially got a list of upgrades. We ordered an appraisal. The appraiser went out and the appraiser said the same thing to him. He's like, before I even came out here, I just to give you a heads up, like you priced yourself out of the neighborhood. And, and the guy, the homeowner, he's like, yeah, Tein already kind of told me. He's like, look, like this. Yeah. And I told that appraiser, I let him know the game plan is we're looking for this appraisal report to come in as close as possible to 625 as possible. And the appraiser at that point, he actually had to go out 5-mile radius because there really was not any comparable homes nearby at all. with, you know, because the houses that have sold, they weren't updated either, but they still were selling in the 400,000 range. You know, they were moving ready. So that game plan, I went in where I wanted to get an appraisal report that kind of supported our number. We got 575 on the appraisal report. And what he did at that point in time, he used, you know, he had all the invoices, all the upgrades, and essentially did a ton of adjustments on the price value aspect. But he also pulled comps that were further out in nice neighborhood, because it was a nice neighborhood. It was just he priced himself out of the house, out of the area. So he went 5 miles out, grabbed some homes that were brick homes as well. Like he did some crazy stuff. Like he turned all vinyl home into all brick home. You know, he went above and beyond with everything. So we went to a neighborhood with brick homes. Like he pulled all those comps. We got the 575 appraisal report. Now at that point in time, the next thing I gave him a heads up on is our challenge is going to be market value as well, because there is literally nothing in this neighborhood that is supporting 625, even what he wanted. We listed for 550. We got 575. And even, you know, on that time, essentially I made him aware the buyers, because buyers, what they're going to do is they're going to run a market analysis as well, right? So they're going to see there's no comps in the area supporting the 550 or even getting up to the 575. But with that appraisal report, I was able to give a little bit of a value add where essentially we listed for 550 and said over $300,000 worth of upgrades done to the home and recently appraised for 575. Currently, you know, and you list at 550, everybody is getting a steal. That when we did put it on the market, this is where market value comes into play. There were buyers definitely questioning the 550. We did, however, still got 4 offers at 550 and above. So it's still, there was buyers willing to pay it. And he already knew going into it, we're still going to have a problem with the next appraisal, because that's so subjective on who comes out, right? The chances are very slim we're going to get the same appraiser that gave us the report. But that report came in hand for come that time. In the event appraisal come in short, I have that report to supply to the other appraiser and let him know, hey, this is essentially what the other appraiser did. These are the upgrades, and this is how he came up with the value of 575 at least. And we did end up appraising for 575. Because that's we went under contract for 575 and then actually ended up selling it for 575 and appraised at that. But that's the scenario where that came into play for appraised value versus market value, right? And it's important to know this because that seller, if you don't know how to have these conversations, that seller needed to understand you priced. It took several conversations because he talked to me. He talked to other realtors. Other realtors were telling him essentially, hey, you can get 625, 650, like it's guaranteed. And I was the only one that went in there, and he really appreciated because I laid it out in front of him. I'm like, what comps did the other realtors show you to support to 625, 650? And like nothing really. They just saw how much upgrades I've done to the home. It looked marvelous. And then they said, you should have no problem. I'm like, okay. And the guy is an analytical person too. So he appreciated me breaking it down in front of him. Like, look, like I would love to say you can get 625, 650 range, but here's the reality. You're in this neighborhood where the highest sales are 400,000. And it's unfortunate you did $300,000 worth of renovations. I would have told you never to do that, but we're meeting now. So there's nothing that we could do at this point, but this is the reality. Like, I don't think it's not really that doable. Unless we take these precaution measures, which is essentially get a list of upgrades, get appraisal done, and then put the home on the market and try to do a value add where people feel like they're coming in to automatically equity play. And that's where that conversation needed to happen. And you need to be able to explain it. I essentially walked him through. This is where I showed him literally his city assessed value. So his city assessed value is like $315,000. So just so you guys can get an idea. So I brought in the tax assessed value, showed it to him, and the conversation was, hey, look, you're being assessed by the city $315,000 at this point in time being, because majority of the homes in the neighborhood have only sold for about $400,000 and $415 max. And then I showed him next the appraised value. This is what an appraiser is going to be looking at. There is literally nothing in this neighborhood you're going to have to go 3+ miles out. And I don't know if that appraiser that comes out once the loan is done is actually going to do that, or is he going to use the $400,000 comps and do a price adjustment on all the upgrades that you've done, and you're only going to probably land up in the 500 range at most, 525, 550. If he does an adjustments on the upgrades, who knows? That's a variable. Third thing is, I'm like, the challenge you're going to have is buyers that are seeing this property on Zillow, and Zestimate shows 425 and we're listed at 550. I'm like, you've got 3 challenges altogether. And he appreciated me telling him up front. I was like, I can easily come in here and tell you, just like the other realtors, you can get 625, make my day super easy, simple, put it on the market, but then it's gonna be stressful for you when it doesn't appraise. But I'm telling you the honest truth, this is the challenges. So, Joe, were you about to say something?
Can I ask you a question?
Sure.
So I'm taking a listing just like this, literally coming Friday. Pictures are set up for Friday. So I have this couple that has a beautiful home. First off, it's the largest house in the neighborhood. It's 4,200 square feet. They dumped $350,000 in upgrades. I mean, it's like unbelievable. Wait till you guys see it. I'll make sure I'll put it in the post. It's unbelievable. And so I'm running the comps. I'm looking at the neighborhood and like, man, you're right. About 400,000, maybe to 500,000 is about the highest comps in there. I'm like, holy shit. What do I do? So I ran the exact same play that you did. I had them doing an appraisal. I need to confirm the square footage, wanted to see what an appraiser is, because there was no comps in the neighborhood. So I had to go outside the neighborhood to a neighborhood that was next door that did have some comps to support it. So the appraisal came in at 750, and that's what we're going to go on the market with. So my question is, when the buyer came in, did you not provide a guide for the appraiser?
Oh, like the buyer. So supply the appraisal report to the buyer?
Yes.
No, we didn't. We didn't. So so my rule of thumb with a lot of things, less is more, less is better. So if they asked, I would have gladly provided to them. But I'm not going to be the one that started the conversation. Hey, here's the appraisal report. The reason for that is because depending on the buyer that's on the other side, they may say, oh, this is freaking 4.5 miles away. Like, that's what I don't want happening. I just put in their appraised for 575. That's on the agent to do their job, to ask me, not me to tell, provide to them.
No, what I meant was the appraiser. When the appraiser, an appraisal packet, take them the comps, take them the previous appraisal, and, take it to the property before the appraisal happens. So
you're talking about once we were under contract?
Yes.
Yeah. Once we were under contract, I did provide it to him. But so this is what I did. I gave him pretty much a heads up. I said, look, we have 2 options. We can wait to see what it comes in at and then supply the appraisal report, or we can go ahead and supply it firsthand. I was like, the pros and cons of doing either or is this. If we supplied it to the guy firsthand, because I feel like it was either we went under contract like 595 or 600 instead of 575. The only reason why I said is because I think the pros for him were at that point in time, we might have gotten more than the actual appraisal report. So this is what happened. So we got more than the actual appraisal report. And I said the pros of essentially us waiting, like the con of us supplying that report in advance in time is he might just say, it's only going to come in at 575 versus what we were under contract for, I think, which was 595. And that was one of the cons. I was like, if we supply that to him, he might just come in at 575. Or we just wait to see what it comes in at, and at least we know we're guaranteed a 575 amount, like, or more, increase the chances of it landing at 575. Does that make sense, Joe? So
yeah, that makes sense.
There's pros and cons to both, but like if you guys are listing it right at appraised value.
Yeah.
If you go under contract, right at the appraised value, it doesn't hurt to supply it. But I remember now in my scenario, what ended up happening was we actually went under contract for more than the appraised value. And we pretty much was like, okay, if we supply it to the guy, we're guaranteed, we're more than likely going to get at least 575. But right now we're under contract for $20,000 more. Do we just take the chance and see what he comes in at? And if there is a problem, or if he asks, we'll just supply to him and at least get guaranteed 575.
No, I'm of the mindset to supply to him front up, because finding on the back end is a lot harder.
Yeah, if they're well, dude, if I think it depends on the seller too. Like if they're happy with that number that you're talking about, the listing price, just apply.
Sure.
Yeah, just apply because I was still short $100,000 of what he wanted realistically.
Oh,
but
no. The couple in question here wanted in the 8s, and I said no way. I said not in this lifetime. I said if I pick this up and put it in any other neighborhood in Houston, it'd probably be over $1 million property. That's how upgraded this house is. Yeah. And I was like. And I asked him, I said, well, what do you guys want to net? So, well, they're downsizing into another house. So I said, we want to at least get 350 out of it. I said, so let's go in the 7s. We're not going to go in the 8s or the 9s because there's no way in hell it's going to sell at that price.
Yeah. Yeah. But yeah, I would just apply it up front if that's the case. But that was our scenario. I gave him the pros and cons of both scenario, and he decided we'll just wait it out. And we came in essentially pretty much at
I'll let you know how it goes. I'll keep you informed on how that one goes because this is a first to take such a mumbo jumbo listing like this. It's so upgraded to the hilt.
Yeah,
that's beyond the market.
Yep, and this goes to also understanding as an agent, if you're talking to a seller, right, that's thinking about selling in a year or so, and then you have this conversation where the seller's starting to talk about upgrades, there's a value add for you there. You know, you can say, hey, Joe, you know, in the past, I've seen some sellers go really above and beyond on these upgrades. They put about $100,000 into the home, thinking they're going to get $125,000 out. I don't want to see that happen to you. Would you be open to me coming out, seeing some of the upgrades that you have in mind of doing and what the cost associated is with? Because I know you're selling in a year and a half. I just want to make sure you can at least get this money back out. Yeah. So that's, you know, these are some conversations that you need to be having as an agent to get your foot in the door so you can advise them, like, is it truly worth, like, because a lot of people literally think you put $100,000 in, you're going to get $125,000 out. That's not the case. There's comps in the area that needs to be had. Otherwise, fix and flips would be super simple. So, right. Yeah. So, but, all right, cool. So any questions on that, Caesar, Johan?
Yeah. So I just had a quick question, bro. So, everything that you guys said, is that dependent on the buyer that's going to be putting in an offer, you know, liking the condition of the home, liking all the improvements that the owners made to the home? In that situation that you guys are saying, like, that buyer would have to like the upgrade they made on the home, right, in order to pay that price, because there's nothing that supports that price for that home, right? So the buyer just has to like it enough to put in an offer like that, right?
Exactly. And that's where market value comes into play, Caesar. You know, the last thing is really known market value, and that's essentially what buyers are willing to pay. And I had a upfront conversation with him. I'm like, I don't know if there's going to be a buyer willing to pay or not, because there's no data for me to show you. We just have to find out once we put the home up for sale. And I gave him 1 out of 3 scenario, which is like, look, if there's a huge demand for it, the first thing that's going to happen is we're going to get multiple offers and actually higher than what you're looking for. And I just remembered he needed freaking 2 months rent back as well for free. That was another hurdle. So we got all of that. So I pretty much told him, like, if there's a buyer willing to do that, then we're going to find out. Second thing that can happen, we're going to get some showings, and the feedback I'm getting is, hey, Tein, we're not seeing any comps really to support what you're looking for. We found another home that's like nearby and a little better in pricing. We're going to go with that. And we know we're off a little bit on the pricing. Third and final thing that could happen is essentially we get no calls, no showings at all, and we're completely off on the pricing. Would you agree with that? Right. And in his scenario, he just was not budging for anything under 550, which is, you know, it's understandable at the end of the day. It's like you decide that you put $300,000 in so I can get it. Like, if you don't want to sell, you don't want to sell. It's all good, you know, but we can try. But it's market value, Caesar. So that part, what you're asking on is essentially the market will determine it. So,
yeah, and you know, Tein, I'm kind of new. So, like, if I'm to say that to a seller, if I say, hey, you know, before you do something like that, let me come check out your improvements. So how did you, like, how do you know how much an improvement, like how much return you would get on it? Is that practice?
Yeah, well, it's not too complicated. I know you're newer, but as you get more into the field and you're seeing more quotes, it'll help out for sure. But the most important thing is going to be the comps. So let's say, for example, you know a seller is looking to sell in a year and a half, right? And they're about to put in $50,000 worth of renovations. right? You just simply ask, how much are you guys putting into the renovation? They'll say $50,000. Okay, got it. How much are you expecting to get in return for the $50,000? They say, we want 75,000 back. Okay, got it. So, you know, like right now, hypothetically speaking, Caesar, we're seeing comps are showing at around 350 fully renovated with, you know, an updated kitchen, which you're about to do. Is that something that would be acceptable to you in the event, worst case scenario, the market doesn't go up at all and it stays at 350? If they tell you no, then it might not be worth it for them. Does that make sense? Like that applies to sellers that are literally just doing an upgrade to try to get more out of their home.
That's what they're all trying to do, bro.
Well, that what Tain's saying is exactly right. How do you learn that? Is by really looking at the comps around the area and studying and what got top of market and understand what that house was like versus what your client wants to do and see if they can get there. If they upgrade a kitchen, a bath, or whatever the case may be, you know, with the money put in, that's the only way you'll be able to really truly know.
Yeah. And another thing too, Caesar, it's if you always make things like worst case scenario, can you live with that? It helps out a ton, because the reality is they upgrade the kitchen, right? And their worst case scenario is they live in an updated kitchen for a year and a half, and then they just walk away. They put, you know, $50,000 in. Right? That's a really freaking crazy kitchen, but they put $50,000 in, and they just get $50,000 back out. If that's a worst case scenario they can live with, it doesn't hurt to do it, because you're going to get to enjoy the home for another year and a half, and then when you go to resell, you're just walking away slate free. But if their idea is, I'm going to put in $50,000 in, and I expect to get $75,000 out, and they're already pushing for the value, that might not make sense at that point in time. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, yeah, that makes sense.
So that's how I would normally approach it.
It's like swimming pools in the Texas market. You put $100,000 pool in your home, you're not getting $100,000 add to the value of your house. About 20 to 25,000 get value add to your house for a swimming pool.
That's crazy.
I know it is.
It's a little different over here. That's crazy.
Pools are not very respected here in this hot market that's known as Texas. It's amazing. I talk to agents in Arizona and California, and they say, "Yeah, I put $100,000 pool, it immediately upgrades the house by $100,000."
Yeah, I mean, we love pools in Virginia too. It does increase it a good amount.
Yeah, we just don't seem to love pools here, and one of the hottest states in the nation, and we just don't seem to love them.
But yeah, does that any other questions, Caesar?
No, not for me, man. But I have been getting that. That's what you were talking about. I'll be talking to people on the phone, and they'd be like, "Oh, well, what do you think my house is worth?" "Oh, well, I just got my tax assessment, and it's around the 450s." But now you gave me some insight, Tein. So thank you. That helps. That's awesome. Different. Yeah, awesome. Cool.
And now the last thing is essentially market value. What we're talking about, that's what a buyer's willing to pay, right? That's essentially where, let's say, like in my scenario, even though the comps weren't fully there, buyers were willing to go up to close to $600,000. I think we ended up at $595 from what I recall, but it just wasn't there. But these buyers were literally willing to pay that amount because they appreciated the upgrades that he did. He did really good upgrades, and as well, they were even willing to give him 2 months free rent back. They just wanted that house because it was definitely a unique house in that neighborhood. So like people, and especially with the low inventory, that helped a ton. So that's something to keep in mind. The market value is really determined by how the market is, right? So if you've got a ton of inventory and people are priced a little better, I don't know if that might have happened. We still have low inventory in our area. And this was a year and a half ago, so it was really crazy done. But if, you'll see that scenario, like what happened to me, more in a seller's market, essentially, right? In a buyer's market, it may not happen like that. But you can also have scenarios where, let's say the appraised value is there, right? The market value is not there. So like in my scenario where essentially it was everything not there, but you can also have a scenario where the appraised value is there, but the market value is not there. Like it's similar to mine, but you'll have like one thing that I've ran into in the past, sellers, because the reality is this, like some sellers, like it depends on the relationship you have with the appraiser as well, right? So I've had scenarios where I'll go to a for sale by owner's house and they have an appraisal report that shows the magic number that they want. And then there is literally no data whatsoever to support it, like similar to my scenario. So you just have to take the appraisal report sometimes with a grain of salt. Like that's just
sure.
just keep that in mind, because you don't know if they have a relationship with that appraiser, and that appraiser is similar to how I did. Like I told the guy, hey, we're looking for 625 realistically, but just try to get as much as you possibly get for us. And he did what he could, went further out, and because you need to support data, provide him data. But sometimes people have relationships where they may not even need to supply anything, like how we did. It could have been a best friend that did their appraisal report. He just so happened to be appraiser. So don't always fall for that, because again, it really comes down to is if your buyer is willing to pay for it, phenomenal. But you also have to think in mind for your buyer, like that's a tough situation. In the event that they needed to turn around and sell the house again, can they do it again relatively easily, right? Because you're the one that's going to be put in that shoes, in those shoes where essentially you have to help them out and you help them get into that home, right?
Yeah.
So it really depends on the situation. I usually leave that onto my buyers. Like, look, this is what you're walking into. The appraised, in regards to the appraised value, come that time when you go to resell, there's not as many comps. It could be potential, but I do want you to keep in mind that this is like a forever home for you, or at least 5 years you're staying in this home. Then that's all you. If you want to make that decision, go ahead. But I just don't know if the data is fully there to support it, right? So this way you can kind of set an expectation with them. And if in the event something goes wrong and you tried your best letting them know this is all the data supports, all right? Yeah. But they're willing to pay it. So, because you'll have buyers that are, everybody on this call probably have seen it, where buyers are coming out of pocket $85,000 over appraised value. Appraisal comes in short, and they're willing to pay out of pocket. And that's on them, that they found the home very unique and they want it. Right. But it's also, you want to be prepared for it. So that's why you always set the expectation, so it doesn't come biting you later on in the future, a year or two from now, and they're looking to sell and like, hey, how come I can't get it now? And we want, like, remember that time when we bought it, you came out of pocket $85,000, and I was telling you that's completely up to you. Like, it's going to be really tough come that time. You never need to resell, right? So these are things that you want to set expectation for. All right, cool. Any other questions, y'all?
No. Hey, Tein, do you think that same scenario would have happened in this market?
What?
Like you would have gotten what you guys were asking for that home?
I don't know, man. It's one of those things. Like, it really it depends. I don't know what's available in that area right now as we speak.
Yeah, true.
There's no inventory.
Caesar, I'm doing it. I'm going to do it.
Yeah,
and there's low inventory, and the time of the year, I'll keep y'all posted how this one flies. It should be quite interesting.
Yo, what do you guys say to, like, when people say, "Oh, we just want to wait till the spring"? Like, I didn't really, that caught me off guard the other day. I want to wait till the spring. I think we can get more money then. Is that true, you guys?
So it really depends. I sold my house in November, so I use that as my case. Like, it really depends on the situation, Caesar. You can't force somebody to sell. Like, so this is where I would dive more deeper into it. You can have a couple of different conversations. So if he says, I want to wait until spring, okay, understandable. Come springtime, when are you just trying to get as much out of the home, or you need to have something lined up? Because you don't know what do they have something lined up ready to move into?
No. These people don't really know what to do. They just want to. Now that you asked that question, it makes sense. I think they want to net the most for their home, so they want to wait till the best market, but that doesn't exist.
So here's the reality. This is where, Caesar, you got to listen more and dig deeper and ask questions, because let's say if they say, okay, yeah, we want to wait till spring because we could potentially net more, and we're thinking about moving to Florida or Texas. All right, phenomenal. And my next thing, if they tell me one of those states, Texas, Georgia, Florida, my next thing would be, are you aware how much values go up by in these states that you're talking about within these time frames? Because certain people aren't aware. Like, Rika, maybe the data better. Florida numbers went up through the roof within a year, right? Like, so I don't know.
We're doing just fine down here with home values. So our season is now starting because of all the snowbirds coming back and the international buyers. So our home values have increased steadily. We're not hurting for home value.
Yeah. So like, one thing I always tell, like, at least in my market, when people tell me they want to wait till spring or summer to move to these states like Texas, Florida, Georgia, the value increase in our area in comparison to that area is so minimal. So like in our area, it will increase by like 3% at like 3% at best case scenario within, especially where the market is right now, by that springtime that they're waiting for here. So they're, you know, they're thinking about gaining 3% here, trying to get as much for the home, but meanwhile they're losing 10%, percent over in Florida, 10% over in Texas, Georgia. So these are things to take into account for. But this is where you got to ask more questions on finding out what their real goal is. Because another thing too is, yeah, hey, I totally get that in springtime you could potentially net more, but are you also aware there's gonna be more homes listed for sale? So that the rate of homes coming on the market versus the rate of increase in value, it plays into correlation, right? So in this fall and winter time, you'll see the rate of homes coming on the market less than the rate of the value going up, essentially, because there's still going to be buyers searching. So there's pros and cons of everything, and I always tell them it's completely up to your situation, but I think it makes sense for you to understand all scenarios possible.
Yeah, that's where I took the combo. By the way, I took it to there's going to be more competition, and do you really want to do that? But now that you just gave me more insight, ask better questions. But I don't even know. But you're right, no fucking excuses.
My comment to that, because I've heard that so many times, my comment to that really is just to dig into truly the motivation to move. All those are great things.
It is, yeah.
You know, about there's more buyers in the summer versus now and things. But really, it comes down to the real true motivation. Why are they moving? Did they get a job change? Did they downsize? Did they take a deferment for the last 2 years on their mortgage? Now they can't afford their mortgage no more. Those are, to me, are really the true motivations.
Yeah,
to find out why they want to truly move. Arguing with them over the math and the supply and demand. That doesn't seem to move people too much. So you got to really dig deep into what it is they're trying to do.
Yeah, that's why I say you're not gonna be able to force somebody to sell. You know, you just have to really dig deeper on their motivation, what their plans are, so that you can kind of reverse engineer and see if there's any value you could provide that way. You know, those and
that takes skill, you guys. Like what you guys are talking about, I'm learning that to find out the true reason why these people are doing something, they don't know you all the way. So you have to get that out of them. And to Joe's point, you have to find out what's the real reason. And that was gold. That was gold on top of everything. But yeah, that was gold. Thank you guys.
The way to overcome that, Caesar, really is about building rapport. So I do a lot of rapport building in the front end of the conversation with the client. You know, about family. I mean, I don't know if you heard of Ford family. All that. Do a lot of that. Really get to know them. And then they'll start to trust you to open up to you. But you're right. Flip a guard. I don't know this guy. I don't know who he is. And you know, why should I tell him what my
in the beginning, you guys, did you guys ever feel like phony, like feel fake for like trying to connect with this person, like building rapport? Did you guys feel like, man, this is fucked up?
No.
Damn,
I definitely did.
Yeah,
well, I've been in sales and marketing my entire life, so maybe I did way back when, 30 years ago. But no, these days, no, because I take it from here's what it'll probably help you, Caesar. The way I look at it, and I've always looked at it for as long as I can remember, you are not trying to sell anybody anything. You're trying to help them. That's where it comes from. Start from your heart. You're trying to help. And I bet that feeling of like you're feeling yucky about it will go away.
Because I could do that, but then I'm just like, I tend to. But I heard Robert Greene the other day say, you know, you can't be yourself in business. So there's a little bit of an element of performance, a little bit of, you know, but I'm like, bro, like I'm just like, sometimes I'm like, I can't. I could say, yeah, I agree with this person and then make them feel good and shit. But I'm like, I just feel that's fucked up. But to your point, Joe, if they really need to sell, I'm helping them. I'm helping them sell.
Exactly. Well, and disconnect from the outcome is probably the other part of it, you know, because you're not going to be able to convince anybody to do anything that they don't want to do, especially in this business. And just come from a very, like you said, you're wanting to help, you're wanting to provide value to them. You're not trying to sell anything to them. You're really not. And disconnect yourself from what happens. I think you'll find that whole yuckiness part of it will go away.
Yeah, no, Joe's definitely right on that. Rika, you about to say something?
Yeah. Hey, Caesar, Rika here, Florida. So the one thing that you don't really need a skill for this, just really try to really listen to what they're saying. There's a sender and there's a receiver. Just because detach yourself from that you want to hear a certain answer, and then your brain tells you, well, I'm trying to guide them towards that answer that I'm looking for so I can then say what I know what to say. Completely detach yourself. You need to learn how to listen. For example,
I know.
if they say, number one objection, if they say, we're going to wait for the spring, that's really the season to sell, we're going to have more money, we're going to retire. Ask, oh, that's great. You're retiring, congratulations. What are you going to do? Find out where they're moving. Are they moving because they want to be closer to family, to their grandchildren? And if they have a concern about value, don't come up with all of this. You're going to have more competition. Just ask. So let me ask you, Caesar, you want to sell in the spring, thinking that you're going to hopefully get more. Are you on a fixed income? And then just ask questions where you touch their emotions. You want to ask questions where it's almost like it's hard. I mean, we can role play all that too, but what I have experienced is that, for example, you could say, knowing that there are obviously going to be more homes for sale, would you be okay with potentially walking away with 10, 15, 20,000 less? How would that impact your retirement plans? Boom.
Yeah, that's trigger. That's
They
very
will tell
triggering.
you.
That's
Oh,
very
wow.
triggering.
So it's a whole different way of how you say that.
Yeah, and the thing to you guys, to Tein, to you guys, I need to get better at listening. But part of the reason why I'm kind of not listening, I pinpointed this the other day, because Tein's been on me about this. I'm thinking too much of what I'm gonna say next, and it's fucking me up. Did you guys have that same thing?
Yeah, so I did in the beginning, but like it was a very short period of me realizing it needs to be more conversations. Like you literally have to you just have to pretend you're talking to a friend. That's it, man. Like that. Like if you just keep in mind you're just talking to another person, it'll help you listen better. And that's like I know what you're talking about, like feeling phony and all that, but the reality is there are going to be people that need help out there, and you just have to determine what kind of realtor you want to be. Do you want to be the more salesy realtor that may not get as many referrals, or the person that's going to be literally looking out for their best interest, and that's how you get more referrals. The people are going to feel it. Like when you come up with, someone tells you they're going to wait till spring, and then you just feel like an objection handler through their way. Depending on the person, they may or may not catch it. It's like some people will catch it.
Yeah.
You just need to have a conversation. Like you need to know why spring. What's special about spring? What are their plans? Like remember, like I was telling you, like why? Like you can dig deeper into each answer. What, where, why, how? Right? Like like things like that is what's going to help you, Caesar.
Yeah. Thank you guys so much.
My thoughts on that, Caesar. Practice, and then more practice is the way to overcome that, where the conversations do become normal. I mean, natural. I can remember going through some of my very first sales trainings back in the early part of my career, and what they taught us seemed kind of awkward, but until I practiced it, until I like to, recite it in my sleep, is the way to overcome it, really, truly. And it does start what Riza said about listening, is an important skill. I know a lot of salespeople don't tend to listen at all. They want to just give out all the stuff, but really the key is to listen to what the client says and then help them with what their situation is. That is what I have learned over my sales career.
I personally, I don't know about you guys, Rika and Joe, but I personally feel it's like, I don't know, 90, 95% just being a regular person, having a conversation, and 5-10% sales. Literally, like you need to know these objection handlers, like practice it well, but you need to know when to use it. Like it can't be like you're going to get that over time, Caesar. So just understand it's like I would say 90-95% is going to be regular conversation. 5-10% is literally going to be these objection handlers here and there, and advising them properly, educating them on the actual process, the pros and cons of everything.
Yeah.
Yeah. If I can jump in real quick, I'll share a little something.
Yeah, let's hear from Terry.
Yeah. So yeah, man. So I totally get where you're coming from, Caesar, because I know when I was getting started, it was a little while ago, but when I was getting started, you know, I heard all these scripts, I heard all these things to do, and I was like, okay, business, 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 business. You know, this is what I got to do. I got an agenda. This is it. And then I took out the connection part. I took out the emotion, and then what ended up happening, I got some things done, but it took away that human factor, and taking away the human factor, I didn't truly have a connection with the client. I didn't truly form a connection with the seller, you know? So if I'm in there, I need to find a way to connect with them. And that goes to what Joe said with the acronym FORD. You know, you talk about, hey, you know, I see, you know, you got a big family, or, hey, do you got any brothers or sisters, or, you know, whatever that is, you know, because some people have kids, everyone has parents. Most people have, you know, brothers or sisters. So when you walk around the house, you're looking at the pictures, you're looking at not just their family, but things they do. Maybe they like the same sports team, all that stuff. And you're finding ways to connect with them. And then you're talking about, you know, work's been crazy. How's your work been? Talking about that. You're talking about their recreation. Like, you know, what do they do on their spare time? And then, you know, what are your goals here? You know, I know we're here to sell a house, but what are your real goals? The goal is to either get money or to offload it because it's costing too much and they want to downsize, or, you know, maybe they're getting married and having a kid. They need a bigger house, smaller house. But all through that forward, you're connecting. You're having that human connection. And what happens is, if you don't do that, it is a bit just business. It's purely business, and they're not going to feel bad about telling you to kick rocks if they're not happy. But if you have that connection, they're going to think twice about, man, like, Caesar's such a good guy. I believe him. He's awesome. He listened to us. And honestly, I've had more success just letting people talk than I have trying to tell them what they should do. And the person who asks the most questions wins in almost everything in life. You know, if you come in just trying to be direct and tell people what to do, most people don't like that. But if you go to what like Reek was saying, was asking questions, I mean, it is so powerful because people feel like they're in control of their own destiny. And once they feel in control, now you're on their team, as opposed to being like the dictator telling them what to do. And it just creates that connection where they're not going to walk away from you. You're going to be a lifelong, you know, relationship, hopefully, because, you know, if they buy or sell with you today, man, like 5, 6, 7 years from now, guess what? You stay in touch. That's another sale. 5, 6, 7 years from that, that's another sale. And say you're in this business for 30, 40 years. I mean, you're making 5 sales. And if an average sale is $10,000, $15,000, every single person you get in front of, you has the potential to put $50,000, $60,000, $70,000 in your pocket, just them personally. And it's not all about the money, but it's the truth. And then guess what? If you do good, they have friends. And then then they could potentially refer you to another 5, 10, 20 people. So every single person, I mean, it's a few $100,000 if you really look at it. So you got to be close to them, because people don't want to work with not in real estate. Some places, trading stocks, just make it about the numbers. Real estate, believe it, it's a belly to belly, face to face, personal type of business. And you've got to be friendly, because there's people that are terrible in business and terrible at sales that are just really nice and friendly, and they make a ton of money.
Yeah.
But if you can do both, it's game over. If you can do both, it's game over.
Yeah. No, you guys are right. I'm asking the questions, but I'm missing that element of what Tein and what you guys are talking about, which is just being human and being able to connect with them, like by caring, being empathetic about their situation. I'm not doing that. I'm just asking them questions and just business with me. But you guys are right. You guys made a lot of good points, and I thank you guys so much.
You're welcome, man.
Hey,
Well,
Caesar.
anyways.
Yeah, really quick. I'm sorry. Just may I ask you, how old are you?
I'm 30 years old.
30. You look younger. 30 years old. That will come in. It's good for you. You look younger. So
yeah, I'll be 31 this year. But thank you, man.
Good for you. Just really quick, maybe that may help you. Our three kids are all in their mid-20s, and it's a certain generation that also seems to have a little bit more difficulty connecting with those deep questions. And I think maybe something that comes in handy is, have you ever thought about volunteering somewhere? The reason I bring that
No.
up, Cedar, is when you volunteer somewhere, you will find how to communicate and just have a conversation and get to know people on a whole different level. Once you have that comfort zone, those phone calls will really become a lot easier.
Yeah. Yeah, Rika's got a point, man.
Yeah.
It's something to consider, because I do stuff you know, that's like not, I'm in Rotary Club. I go to a bunch of events that's like literally non-real estate.
Bingo. Yep.
And so she's got a point. Like, I think that's something that's free. You can literally do it. Rotary Club isn't free, but it's not that expensive either. But you know, where you're at, like, just go volunteer. That's something that you could definitely connect with people on easily.
Yeah.
And you're giving back. It's always nice to give back.
Yeah, no, thank you guys, big time. And that's part of, yeah, you guys made awesome points, big time points. But I thank you guys.
Anytime, man. All right, well, hope you guys have a good one. Thanks for tuning in. Bill, were you about to say something?
Hey,
Oh,
Tein.
What's up,
I'll
man?
jump in. I got one more thing. Oh, Bill, go ahead. Sorry.
That's all right. I mean, I was just going to say I'm down here in Charlotte. I'm new to your guys' group, but anybody here hearing the objection? I'm going to wait until spring when rates come down.
Oh, we were just talking about.
Yeah.
Pretty much. I mean, rates too, but it really same thing to what we were just telling Caesar. Like, it really depends on the situation, man.
Right.
Yeah.
But if they say I'm waiting till rates come down, and like Terry said, let's say they're getting married or having kids and they want to upsize, but they don't want to downsize the house because, you know, at 7-8% rates, they can't buy the size house they want. If I don't know, you know, in your market in Virginia, you guys, and Joe, you're in Texas, and Rika, you're in Florida, right? There are builders, right, that are buying down rates, like D.R. Horton, Century Builders, Lennar, all have right now homes that are ready to move in the next month or two at about 5% permanent 30-year rates. So if they say, I'm going to wait till next year with rates coming down, you can just say, well, so you're waiting for what kind of a rate? And traditionally what I'm hearing from every buyer, and also sellers or buyers, right? They're not stupid. They don't want to trade their 3% and move into a matchbox when, let's say, they have to upsize their house. If I could help you find a house at 5% and get you that rate today instead of waiting to sell and buy it spring, would you want to take a look at that and just see what they say? Leave it open-ended. If they say, yeah, if you could do that. My old joke used to be, hey, I'm a realtor, not a magician. But now my new joke is, well, what if I could get you that 5% rate today, magically, right? And not wait, and you could sell and move today, since you're just getting married, you're just having a kid, you need a bigger house, and not have to move into a matchbox, and get you that 5% rate today. And then just shut up, like you were advising Caesar, just to ask the question. If they say yes, great, then what builders are currently offering in your guys' market 5% rates, permanent, 30-year?
Yeah, we're seeing that here. We're seeing that here.
Yeah, I'm seeing that too. D.R. Horton. Yeah, something to keep in mind, Caesar, too, especially if they open in new builds. We have that over here too with D.R. Horton.
Right. But a lot of buyers don't know
DR.
that. Like my LO just sent a spreadsheet to a couple that's getting married next year, and the rates average from 7 to 8.5. So the most he could approve them for was $300,000. But if that rate's 5%, guess what happens to their purchase price?
Sure, goes up.
They could buy 400 at 5%, right? And they could get a brand new house. They don't have to buy an old small shit box that they don't really want to renovate, right?
Yeah.
And do all this work because they're getting married or have a kid coming, and they won't want this mess going on. So most of these sellers that are also buyers don't know these builders have these rates.
Yeah.
They have no clue.
Some realtors don't even know it either. So
right. Well, you walk into the builder. Sometimes the builder agents don't even know. They just got a notice. I get these emails. Yeah, we're offering 4.99 from Lennar on a $400,000 ranch. Well, holy crap, that's a great deal. Century right now, Century Communities is offering 5%, and D.R. Horton's offering 5%. But these sellers that are buyers have no clue. They could be saying, I'm going to wait till next year rates come down when I don't have to squeeze into a matchbox that needs a ton of work. Yeah. So if you just pose that question and say, well, if you could get that 5% rate today, would you sell and move today instead of waiting till next year? If they say no, fine. You don't have to like spew all over them that you know about all this stuff. But if they say, yeah, where am I going to get 5% permanent 30-year fixed today? Well, where do you want to live? That's where you dig deeper and then know where your builders are. So, yeah, okay, you want to live in this area of town or Charlotte or Fort Mill, South Carolina or wherever. Yeah, I could let you know what builders got that kind of a rate in the kind of a house you're looking to buy. If I that's to you today, you want to go take a look at it?
Yeah, that's a really good point, Bill. So keep that in mind too, guys.
So anyway, that's just a thought. I don't know if you guys have builders with those kind of rates, but you got to call these guys because they're changing daily.
Oh, sure. There are lenders that have other programs too, like a 2-1 buy down.
Right, temporary buy downs. Yep.
Yeah, temporary buy downs. I'm expecting the lender. I'm married to a mortgage broker, so you know I'm pretty plugged in.
I got to get going, y'all.
But I expect that there's going to be a lot of changes with lenders coming up.
Yeah, Joe. Century Builders in my market, and I think they're also in Texas.
Yeah, we have them.
Yeah, so they have a deal with their preferred lender, Aspire. If you buy one of their homes that's ready in October, the fixed 30-year rate is 5%. If you buy one of their homes in November or December, it's 5.5%.
Well, the question too is what is the loan origination charge they're going to charge for that rate? I know my wife beat a builder last year, just totally destroyed them, but that was last year. We haven't really ran into competing against them in that this year. But you bring up some interesting points on that. But I would love to see that mortgage company buy the builder what it costs to get that rate. Because it's going to cost something, you know. Right. Maybe I'm not, talking about dealing with the rates. One way to go about it is possibly, well, it depends on where the market is and that you're going into. You can get the seller to, get some closing costs.
You mean like a reseller? Yeah, not a builder. Yeah. But if you're in Texas, right, Joe?
Yes.
Whereabouts?
Houston.
So do you have Century Communities in Houston?
Yes. Oh, yes.
So go to their website right now and look at the top header.
Oh, I know. One of their reps. One of their reps, I'm on their list, and I get their stuff.
There's two options right now because I was just talking to James Mudd in Dallas. They have at the top you can get 3% 2-1 buy down, but if you scroll down, it says or, and then it'll say 5 or 5.5% fixed 30-year.
Yeah, they got year 1 3%, year 2 4 and 5.
Scroll
also
down.
VA. Oh yeah, 5
permanent 5% 30-year.
That's on FHA and VA. I don't see them saying.
And then go all the way down, and there's a 5.875 conventional. But you can get 5 or 5.5 FHA VA right now 30-year.
But the question is how much that costs you in closing cost?
All you can do is, call up whatever communities, pick a community, Century community near you, and go in and talk to the agent and their.
But you're right. But you're right. As a way to overcome some of this is to look into the new construction.
I think
certainly it's a deal.
You got to know that that's available right now. So all you're trying to do is what that guy was saying is, what do I say to somebody who wants to wait? Well, if you dig deeper and find out I'm waiting till next year when rates come down, because a seller is a buyer, right? They're not stupid.
Yeah.
3 or 4% now. They don't want to buy a 7 or 8% and half the size house or an old piece of junk that they got to renovate to get the size they want. But if that's what they're waiting for, and they don't know that they could get in a brand new house with no work for 5%, that'll give them the size house they want in the location they want, would you want to know about that? because now you're not just a realtor, you're adding value that say, well, yeah, that's exactly why I was waiting. Like, I think rates are going to go down. And you could say, yeah, I agree with you. They probably will next year. But guess what? When they go down, how many more buyers are you going to be competing with to get those houses? And what's going to happen to the house price? What if you could get that 5% today when you don't have a line out the door of the builder or 5 or 10 offers from the private seller driving that price up, and you could get that rate today? Would that be something you'd be interested in? And then
no, you're absolutely right, Bill. That is a very valid point. With dealing with buyers is to maybe now the play is new construction. You know,
I think it is. I think it's the best deal.
All kinds of deals.
It's the best deal out there. And don't forget, sellers are buyers too, right, Joe?
Right. Absolutely.
Yeah. So they could be saying, you know what, I'm just going to wait. I'm going to do some renovations. But they also might be thinking, I'm going to wait till I heard rates are coming down next year so I can buy more house, right? And then, you know, sure, they'll have a line of more buyers at their door, and their house might be worth more too, but they're also going to be competing. Why do you think Ricky Carruth bought 4 D.R. Horton homes to rent out? Because he got a 5% fixed 30-year rate in Alabama, where his office is.
No, you're right. You're correct. I mean, the incentives are strong on the builder side. You just gave me an idea. I need to probably.
Yeah, but you see how that can open up that conversation. Like, the whole idea is to keep the conversation going. So now you're not just Joe, the realtor. You know, hey, I'm Joe the magician. What if I could get you that 2-3% below market rate today? Would you consider moving today if you knew you could get that rate today, rather than wait till next year when everyone says they're going down? And that's when all the buyers are going to pile in market that are sitting on the sidelines waiting for the same thing.
That's true. No, you brought up a very good point, and that's something that now, yeah, I had seen Century done this, and I think D.R. Horton is doing it.
D.R. Horton.
I'm not sure about Perry and
Lennar. Do you have Lennar in your?
Yeah. Well, they're so loved here.
Lennar is offering on their ranch plans 4.99% fixed 30-year rate.
We don't love them here in Texas. They cut us out over the seller's market.
Okay, so go with the ones that aren't cutting you out, right? Go with the D.R. Hortons. Go with the Centuries. They're very agent friendly. I spent yesterday looking at 2 different Century communities, because if I had a nickel for every buyer and every seller who's a buyer told me that I'm going to wait till rates come down, I'd be rich. I would have. Sure. I'd have a gigantic pipeline of people that have told me they're going to wait till rates come down. What I did yesterday was I took video of 2 Century communities. Both have at least a half a dozen homes. They're going to be ready next month and in November at 5 and 5.5% fixed 30-year rates. I was on the phone. The reason I came on late, I was on the phone before I got on your call. And the guy got the spreadsheet from my lender at 7 to 8% rates. He can only max on a resale house $300,000. Guess how much house he could buy at 5%?
A lot more.
$400,000. He could get a brand new Century house for lower per month at 5% than he would pay on a $300,000 piece of junk that he doesn't really want.
No, you're right. Are you familiar with the website New Home Source? I don't know if you guys got that in
New Home Source. Yeah, I've seen that. Do they have like?
That's a summary of all the. That's a summary of all the different builders in your area.
Okay.
Now you made me think about. I need to go through and see who's got deals and start compiling a resume of. What that's a good idea. You brought.
We're the pros, right? Should they be the ones that have to find all this out? Like, if you don't know, like, you're a full-time realtor, right? Yeah, I don't know, then I'm not doing my job. And every buyer and every seller who is also a buyer that says they're going to wait till next year till rates come down. If I don't say, well, if I could show you a home that you in an area you'd like to live, that's, with that 5% rate you're waiting for today, and you could get it today and sell your house today and move next month, would you be interested? If they say no to that, then you don't have somebody that's motivated like you guys were talking about. But if they if they say, Joe, what are you, a magician? And you go, well, in this case, instead of you paying to buy down the rate, let the builder buy it down for you.
No, you hit the nail on the head. Now, thanks for bringing that up. I know I've been seeing these rates float around with. I don't do a lot of buyer business these days, but you're right. Sellers
are buyers. That's my point. Like, the reason I came on late is I have a seller that bought a townhouse from me 5 years ago. It's only 900 square feet. He just got engaged, and his fiance is squeezed in a 2-bedroom, 900 square foot box. They want to get the hell out today, not next year when they get married, right? So I said to him, yeah, I know you can only buy 300,000, you know, at 7-8%, but if I could show you a brand new house that's like 10-15 minutes from your job and 10-15 minutes from her job, would you want to know about it? And they go, yeah, absolutely. But where the hell am I going to find that? Well, he can't find it, but that's what I did yesterday. I go, well, shit, I was there yesterday. The model opens Friday. When do you want to see it? They go, let me talk to her at lunch, and then I'll let you know if we can go on Friday or Saturday. Bam. Now you have 2 sales. Century's going to pay me 3% on 350, 75,000, whatever the hell it is, whichever one they like best. And then I could sell his townhouse for 200. Just out of thin air, somebody who's saying, oh, should I wait? Maybe I'll wait till rates come down because I'm looking at this spreadsheet from my LO. Freaking, I can't afford more than $300,000 at 7.5%, 8%. Maybe we'll just wait till rates come down. Well, do they really want to wait? No.
No, Bill, like I said, that was very good. Thank you for sharing that, for sure, man. That's you're right on point. You're right on point. Now, where are you? You said you're in Charlotte?
Charlotte.
My sister lives in North Carolina, in Cary, North Carolina.
Cary, yeah. I used to live. My daughter used to live in Apex, the next town to Cary, and I used to live in Holly Springs, the next town south of Apex. So I know Cary real well.
Yeah, it's a beautiful part of the world. They've been in. Well, my brother-in-law is spent his last part of being in the Army at Fort Bragg.
Yeah.
And
yeah, that's
they love it there so much. They don't want to move back to Houston. So
right. I actually got my daughter both. I got both my daughters new homes. One just south of Cary from True Homes, which is a local builder, and then I got my other daughter another True Home in South Carolina. So yeah, because the best deal right now is builders, because what they're looking at is the payment, right?
At the end of the day, that's what
exactly. So because of 7-8% rates, they can only afford, like this couple I just got off the phone with this morning, 300,000. They're like, Bill, man, there just isn't shit for sale for 300. And I said, I know you know, we really got to get up to like 350, but we're only approved at 7.5% for 300,000. And my only question was, well, if I could show you a brand new house, like 15 minutes from work, that, you know, at 5%, you could buy a $400,000 house for less. Would you be interested? They're like, hell yeah. But how are you going to do that? Now, all of a sudden, I'm a freaking hero, right? Like, I went from just your average realtor that said, yeah, you're pretty much screwed at 300,000 buying a piece of junk, that you're not handy. You got to call your dad for help. You don't want to do that. You've already been doing that for 5 years, and the piece of crap you bought 5 years ago, you don't want to do it again. You're getting married. You're probably going to have kids. You don't want your house a mess. You just want to live in it and enjoy it. You know what I mean? So if we're not offering those solutions, where are they going to go? Just go online and call Century Direct? Well, guess what?
Go direct.
Yeah, go direct. So, but Century will
you out of the deal.
Pay us 3% of that sale.
No, you're exactly hit that nail on the head, man. I appreciate it. Where'd you come from? You come from EXP, or where'd you come from?
How'd you know?
Because that's where I came from. And
yeah.
All of us came from EXP. That's why.
Yeah. Actually, Tein found me in Brandon Mulrennan's FISBO domination group.
Oh, yes. Oh, yes. Well, yes, I'm part of that too. Brandon Mulrennan. Yes.
Yep.
Fantastic. One of the few people I trust in this business is Mr. Brandon Mulrennan.
Yeah, he's a straight shooter.
I like that because that's exactly his approach to the business. I guess maybe because it matches me more than anything is why I like it. It's my personality. So, but yeah, no, Brent, yeah. Well, I just got Tein. Funny story. How I came is I would happen. It was in December last year. I was just on YouTube, listening to Brandon Morinen's stuff, and lo and behold, there was an interview with Tein on there.
Yep.
I didn't know Tein. We were both at EXP. I didn't really know Tein.
Right.
I listened to it, and I was like, "Holy shit! Let me take a look at this." And I called Tein up to ask him, say, "Hey, give me the breakdown of this. Tell me more about it." And I still vexed, because I was like, I've been at EXP for a long time, and I was like, I don't know if I want to make the move. And then my wife, who's a mortgage broker, said, "Who's heading this up?" I said, "Robert Palmer." And she said, "That guy meant some gold. You need to go with that guy." Right. And I was like, "Oh," because my wife knows who he is. I mean, my wife's been in the mortgage business 28 years, and she knows who RP Funding is. And she even showed me the Scotsman guy that, look at the Scotsman's guy. Who's the top 10 people? They're all RP Funding people.
Yeah.
The guy knows what he's doing. So,
yeah.
And then, of course, the financials and all that behind it went along with it. But, well, Bill, stay in touch, man. It's good to connect with you, certainly. But I got to get on this. Some clients have been bugging me since we've been talking.
So anyway, that's just my 2 cents. I mean, I don't know what.
No, it's great 2 cents. No, that's you.
But don't you think at least a seller maybe you're talking to that also has to buy might be interested if it was possible to get 5% today instead of waiting till next year when rates go down? Like,
well, we don't know. There's no surety rates are going to go down next year.
Right? They might not. What if they don't? Right? What if they don't? But you could get that rate today.
Oh, well, sure. No, you're exactly, and you look like the professional. I mean, the way I view the role that we're consultants at the end of the day, right? We're consultants advising them of their options. If you don't know that option exists, but another realtor does, guess what? You just lost it to another realtor.
You lost both the sell and the buy.
Exactly. So now you put it on my list to do some homework about what's going on truly in new construction.
So yeah, so next week, tell me after you do some investigation into, like, is this 5% Century deal for real? What's the origination fees? I don't know the answers to all that, but see if it is real. And if it is, then, see next time you hear that objection, like, I'm going to wait till next year when rates come down, whether it's a buyer or a seller and a buyer, whatever. Yeah. Like you said, we should be knowing and offering all the options that are out there in the marketplace.
No, that's exactly right. Well, Bill, I got to run, brother. Thanks for everything.